Star Trek's upcoming prequel movie is pulling the same trick for the fourth time. Star Trek's first theatrical film in 8 years will be another prequel that attempts to pull the same franchise trick for the fourth time. 2016, a Star Trek Beyond release was the last Star Trek film to be seen on the big screen, and its lack of mega-hit status is one factor that mired Star Trek IV in development hell. Since 2017, Star Trek TV shows, and soon its very first streaming movie, have been released on streaming platforms like Paramount Plus and Netflix. Star Trek's untitled origin movie is expected in 2026 and will mark the franchise's fourth attempt to do the same thing. J.J. Abrams rebooted the Star Trek movie franchise in 2009, which marked the second time Star Trek attempted a prequel. The first was the Scott Bakula-led Star Trek Enterprise, which depicted the first of several versions of the Starship Enterprise a century before Star Trek, the original series. After Star Trek Beyond, another prequel TV series, Star Trek Discovery, was set a decade before Star Trek, the original series. While Star Trek Discovery eventually sent the show into the 32nd century, its spin-off series Star Trek Strange New Worlds became yet another prequel to the Star Trek, the original series era. Star Trek's new prequel is its fourth attempt at telling an origin story. The appeal of an origin story is a strong one, especially considering how vast and diverse the Star Trek timeline is. With so many beloved characters and iconic stories, the desire to see the origins of some of sci-fi's greatest narratives comes as no surprise. However, after 4 versions of the prequel premise, it might be time for Star Trek to look to the future instead of focusing on its canon timeline's past. But with Star Trek's unnamed origin movie supposedly in production with an expected but not confirmed 2026 release date, the franchise still seems to be going backward. The problem isn't with the concept of prequels, which have been mostly successful in the past, but rather with the repeated attempts at getting them right. Although what's next for Star Trek might not be a reach into the future, there are a few upcoming projects that might end up counterbalancing the overuse of prequels. Star Trek Starfleet Academy is set in the 32nd century after Captain Michael Burnham, Sonequa Martin Green, reopens the Academy. Star Trek's first streaming movie, Star Trek Section 31, will feature flashbacks of Emperor Philippa Georgiou's Michelle Yeoh's younger years in the Mirror Universe, but it isn't necessarily a prequel. Star Trek should focus on the future, not the past. If Star Trek continues to look for stories in the established canon's past, then the timeline can't move forward and the universe can't expand. This dilemma might even slow the creation of new Star Trek projects, which have been heavily reliant on the current canon. The exciting part about Star Trek is boldly going where no one has gone before, so revisiting the same places won't end well if it continues to be the only plan for new content. New, exciting, fresh stories set in the future, or somewhere the franchise hasn't been, would be exactly what Star Trek desperately needs. Star Trek's optimistic next show is a step in the right direction for a franchise that's long since been too focused on its own past. Even still, there are more prequel projects than anything else, and the balance needs to be brought back. Star Trek's untitled prequel is expected to depict humanity's early contact with aliens. But since that narrative has been covered before, the fourth attempt at an origin story will have to find a new way to tell the story. With so much focus on explaining the past, Star Trek runs the risk of getting stuck there. The Star Trek universe is poised to revisit one of its favorite storytelling devices in its upcoming prequel movie, the time-honored prequel trick. For a franchise that spans over half a century, Star Trek's exploration of timelines, alternate realities, and historical origins is well-worn territory. The upcoming prequel is no different, continuing the trend of looking back while aiming to keep things fresh. Yet, this isn't the first time nor the second, or even the third that Star Trek has used this method to rejuvenate the franchise. It's the fourth. While some fans may be excited about exploring another chapter of Starfleet's past, others wonder if the well is finally running dry. The allure of prequels and Star Trek prequels are a powerful tool in science fiction. They allow creators to expand on backstories, introduce new characters, and deepen established lore. They also tap into nostalgia, pulling in fans with the promise of answering long-standing questions about beloved characters or events. In a way, Star Trek's prequels are a way to hit the reset button while staying within the universe's already established boundaries. From a production standpoint, prequels have their advantages. They give creators the ability to honor the original series while sidestepping some of the challenges that come with developing entirely new plots or worlds. Prequels come with built-in fan service. They nod to known events and characters, ensuring that audiences will tune in to discover how it all began. Yet for Star Trek, this will be the fourth major attempt to leverage the prequel concept in one of its films or series. While these prequels have been a successful way to reinvigorate the franchise in the past, the upcoming film raises a critical question. Can Star Trek continue to revisit its own history without it becoming stale? A brief history of Star Trek's prequels. The first foray into prequel territory began with Star Trek Enterprise, which aired from 2001 to 2005. Set 100 years before Captain Kirk's iconic voyages, Enterprise followed Captain Jonathan Archer and the early days of space exploration by the United Federation of Planets. The show aimed to fill in the gaps between humanity's first steps into deep space and the well-established Federation of Kirk's time. Enterprise had a rocky reception. While some fans enjoyed its back-to-basics approach, others felt the series lacked the charm and ambition of its predecessors. It eventually gained a stronger following, but the mixed reviews and low ratings led to its cancellation after just 4 seasons. Still, it provided the blueprint for future Star Trek prequels. Focus on familiar lore, but present it through a fresh lens. The second time Star Trek dipped into prequel waters was with 2009 Star Trek, directed by J.J. Abrams. This film rebooted the original Star Trek crew Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and the rest, but with a twist. It took place in an alternate timeline. The film played with time travel and paradoxes, essentially creating a prequel that wasn't strictly beholden to the original series' history. This alternate timeline prequel was a resounding success, appealing to both new audiences and longtime fans with its high-energy action, charismatic cast, and modern take on the franchise's optimistic spirit. The third major prequel venture arrived in 2017 with Star Trek Discovery. Set roughly 10 years before the events of the original Star Trek series, Discovery introduced a new ship, a new crew, and a new central character in Michael Burnham. Like Enterprise, Discovery aimed to show a less polished, more turbulent era of Starfleet, exploring early tensions with the Klingons and other iconic Star Trek species. However, Discovery differentiated itself with cutting-edge special effects, serialized storytelling, and a bold commitment to pushing Star Trek into more mature, darker territory. The fourth time's the charm, or is it? Now, with Star Trek's upcoming prequel movie, the franchise is about to employ this trick for the fourth time. Rumored to explore the origins of a key event or character from the original series, the film promises to delve deeper into Starfleet's nascent days, possibly leading up to Kirk's reign aboard the Enterprise. Although details are sparse, it's expected to follow in the footsteps of its prequel predecessors, expanding on the franchise's storied past while attempting to add a new spin on familiar events. Yet, while excitement is building, some fans and critics are beginning to question whether Star Trek has relied too heavily on the prequel formula. Prequels, by their nature, are limited in scope. They're confined by the need to align with established continuity, and they often suffer from a lack of genuine stakes. After all, audiences already know the future that follows. How many more gaps in Starfleet's history can realistically be filled before the prequel well runs dry?